Rightio. Hey, folks. Welcome to yet another episode of Common Sense Live with me, Mike Omni. I'm joined today by Busayo Twins.
Woo! Thank you.
That's the first time someone's, they've simulated the audience for themselves.
Yeah. Listen, it gets like that.
How was your week? How's your week going? How have things been for you?
Oh, do you know what? It's been an all right week in terms of like weather-wise. It's been all right, but today just got a bit tired. Really, that's all. Tired, but we're nearly there. What about you?
I don't think you're alone. I literally, for some reason, today's just been very, very tiring. I don't know why. I don't know. I really don't know. I want to just say it's work. It's probably the news feed. There's a lot of negative news, and I don't know. I was asking this the other day to a friend. When I was younger, it seemed like more fun stuff was happening. Whereas now the news feed seems particularly kind of tumultuous. And I guess what we're trying to work out is it that I'm older and so I care more? Or is the world on fire? What do you think?
I feel like we're in a pandemic, Mike. I'm not sure if you noticed. So I think it's the pandemic.
Oh, yes.
That's a big change. But I think it's just the pandemic, and it's like a fatigue, of sameness. And I think we're not really resting on the weekends or after work. So we haven't really got the outlet that we're used to, So we need an extended annual leave or something where it's like no work, no nothing, chill out, recharge and come back. Otherwise, it's just the same loop. And I think that looming, June 21st, it's like it's not any closer, but you're still like one more day. So who knows?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And if anything, the fatigue of sameness sounds like your mixtape. It's
a mixtape. Why did you say album? Why did you say project? Why does mine have to be a mixtape? Why couldn't it be? Do you know what I mean? Mixtape. Oh, good.
No, that's not what I mean. Let's move straight on.
Yes,
well, folks, listen, on this show, what we try and do is bring people with different perspectives together to give you an idea of what's happening during the week, go through some current affairs, also do some debates. I'm feeling really giggly today, so sorry if I'm just laughing randomly. It's what happens once I get really tired. I just start laughing at everything. But folks, we can't do this alone. And so, you can tweet, you can send this stream to somebody who you like. Also, when you don't like, get involved in the discussion. We're going to be talking later about protest, the UK young people. There seems to be a protest every other week these days. So what's the future of these protests and what's the new government legislation, the policing and protest legislation that will see the government essentially have increased powers. What's that going to do for the nature of protest? So really interesting debate, discussion. Maybe you're watching us, grabbing some coffee or eating some food. Thank you for joining us. Let's get straight into the fun. Well, there's one top story that's not on here, but I've got to mention, and I was saying it the other day, I was having a debate with a friend of mine who hates the royal family.
Right.
No, sorry, loves the royal family. As in loves them. I mean, loves them off, right? And, he had sent me a picture of Meghan Markle and was like, oh, look at this woman. She ruined the royal family, whatever. The same old. And I said, well, listen, since she met Harry, he's stopped living on benefits. He's moved out of his mum's house and he's got a job. Shouldn't we be celebrating? She's helped him mature. And that's obviously one of the breaking news this week is Harry's got a job. He's got 2 jobs. He's got a job working for a fast rising startup company called Better App, and also doing some investigations or surveying, I think, on disinformation for another organization started or funded in part by the person who also started and funds Craigslist, which is quite interesting. What was your thought on this when you saw that Prince Harry's got a job?
I felt like he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. If he doesn't work, it'll be a case of you can't try and associate yourself with the commoners, with the empathy and sympathy that you want from us without living our life. At the end of the day, it seems like a privileged conversation to be had, although it's about extremely relatable issues like racism and mental health. But now that he's got a job, it's also a case of, well, what was your recruitment process like were you fast track? Like, were you qualified? What makes you qualified, and again, I don't think he was waiting for universal credit like many people are. So it's one of those ones where it's like, do you know what, it is what it is. They're the royal family, they're going to find their feet. he was never going to be homeless. You know what I mean? So to say, he was never going to be out of luck like many people find themselves. So it's just on a case of we have to accept that these are royal people who will find a way to get through life. And yeah.
So abroad, you know, Harry's got a job. He's moving forward. At home, you know, on Sunday, the royal family announced that they're considering appointing a new diversity czar in an attempt to modernize the monarchy or monarchy, however you pronounce it. And the idea is, you know, they said that they're seeking independent views on how to represent ethnic minorities. Because they acknowledge that more needs to be done to champion minority rights. Right. What do you think about this? Are you going to apply? What are you thinking?
Right. Do you know what? It's just funny. You know, I don't know yet. It just seems like a ridiculous thing to do, but it does show that the level playing field between different class of people has closed. Like culturally, like we're the same. She's watching the news we're watching. Do you know what I mean? There's no special in-betweeners, but it just shows that, yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, from what I understand is that this were plans already being made before the interview, but the interview obviously had to have them step up whatever they were already doing. But I want to know the details of it. Do they want more of us serving them in Buckingham Palace, or is it like in what angle do they want to be represented? Do they want us to be represented? That's my question. Like, how would they measure that as well?
I mean, a part of me was getting really kind of anal about it because I thought, well, I hate when people say things like champion minority rights. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Do they want people to run I'm thinking, what exactly do you want them to kind of, you know, just kind of talk about it more? You want someone to kind of organize a play about it? Are you looking to do some spoken word? Are you commissioning some spoken word pieces about it? Exactly. What does that mean? Of course, some people are very happy because they're saying, well, listen, this is what the royal family always does. It modernizes, it changes guys to fit, you know, the current mood of the time. Do you actually think that it's going to be successful in appointing this new diversity czar, in championing minority rights?
No, because it doesn't. What would happen is that for the individual they choose, that will be a glorified position for that person. They'll probably be a black or ethnic minority individual, hopefully. So that person will get a lot of credit, a lot of limelight. They might have a few charities and campaigns, but as I understand it, the royal family isn't very influential in matters of culture in society. So they've spoken about mental health a lot, but it normally benefits mostly the reputation of which royal family members engaged in it. It makes us see them differently rather than actually, wow, you've really changed things. And again, they tend to be on the back of the campaigns. They never seem to be leading it, not really innovative. It's more a case of society's moving, so let us move. So if you have to modernize, it means that you're already behind. So I can't clap that you're catching up or you're trying to be part of the conversation.
I guess this is something that feels deeply disingenuous to me, is that because of course that these folks aren't diverse enough, they are now championing minority rights. So it's like, well, do you believe in those rights, or are you doing it because, you know, it's something that people were accusing some of the royals of doing? We all saw the images of immediately after the royal family got into the hoo-ha they got into. Suddenly, I'm seeing lots of black people with Prince Charles. I'm seeing lots of black people with Prince William. I'm not saying it was they organized it, but it's an awful coincidence.
And you know what?
My auntie is been brought to walk him to the door. It's a bit like
they called her. Where did they call her from? Where was she before? Was she even on today? But I think it's interesting how I saw on Instagram someone talking about, like, when it's time to do diversity and inclusion, the people that you know, why don't you hug them? Like Archie. Why don't you champion Archie? Hug Archie, invite Archie back to his house, and then I'll be like, you're embracing the people that you know. It's always good to embrace the foreign, like the people that you don't know. You know what I mean? It's easier to engage people that's not connected to you, because it's easy to be like, oh yeah, the guilt. But when it's your own family, why don't you go and embrace Meghan and Archibald, and let's talk and let Archibald tell us how he feels.
Let's leave the royal family for now, because I know that I'm going to get in trouble even for the little views I've shared so far. Let's move on to something more cheery, a COVID third wave. We've been told, and we had not Donald Trump, sorry. I do get them confused sometimes. Boris Johnson say recently that and he warned us all that Europe's third wave will soon wash up on our shores. So he says that we should be under no illusion, because we're going to feel the effects of what's happening across Europe. We know that Paris, France for the most part, and Germany, they're not in a good place. In fact, Angela Merkel just announced a few hours ago that Germany is going to another national lockdown in time for Easter. So do you think this is going to have an effect on when we're meant to go out and leave? The 21st of June. Is that a lot of us are still clinging on to that? But is it even going to happen anymore?
I mean, it will happen. I think it's just about the countries that we anticipated being on the list, right, of places that we can't fly to. Europe's always been a nice getaway because of culture, but also price. Going to Europe is much easier than going to Nigeria during that time. Do you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, there is an element of reality check we all need. We need to remember that it's a global pandemic. It's not UK's pandemic only. So even if we're okay or getting better according to the vaccination rollout, it only protects us, right? It only protects those who have had it. And right now, the general population of people that spread it the most haven't had it. It's only the people that are the most vulnerable. So if we go there, we have the potential to spread it. And if they come over here, they have the potential to spread it. It's just what a pandemic is like. So we just have to find a way of enjoying summer in the UK. That's all it is, really, a UK summer, and see what we can do.
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I totally take your point on the whole global pandemic thing. I'm at the stage now where I just want to be out. I want to play some tennis. I just want to be out just for a little bit.
But look, with the diversities you can play tennis in Kensington and Kensington. There's places for us to go now we haven't visited, so it's okay.
Did you see those memes where folks were saying the kind of things they could turn Buckingham Palace into? And folks were saying it could be a giant Asda. Someone said it could be a Lidl.
Oh my God, Lidl. Someone said it could be like jollof for lunch.
You're adding a tennis court to it. Now, the last story, really interesting too. I'm sure some of you have been thinking, where is Donald Trump? Well, according to reports, and this is what Jason Miller, who is a senior advisor, says, Trump is planning to return to social media, but not on common Twitter or common Facebook. He's actually coming up with his own platform. Right, so he's claiming that this is going to redefine the game. What do you make of this? The idea that Trump may have his own platform. What are you thinking? Are you going to sign up?
No, I wouldn't sign up. I don't think I even followed Trump once in my life. Do you know what I mean? I just think it's them ones where you just feed his machine by giving him attention. I don't think him as an individual actually has any views. So it's not like he affects me in any particular way. It's the fact that we've given him such a platform just to look at him and cry. And the more you cry, the more attention you get, But I think it makes sense. Look at what he's done for the last 4 years. Anyway, he wants to be heard. He feels like he's got something to say. And then I guess in a good old, ex-presidential fashion, you always hear them with it's either a book, it's some sort of tour to say this is what my experience was. So maybe with him, social media was always nice to him or gave him what he wanted. So it makes sense for him to say, I'm going to be here all the time. And he'll probably use it to critique Biden for the next 4 years and whatever. So
pretty much.
You know what I mean?
And obviously, we know that Trump may run again. We saw him recently speaking at CPAC, and he made it clear that the guy actually run again. How likely is, we don't know. I don't know how serious this story is. It's serious in that he said it. But the idea that he would actually come, try to, take on the tech giants. We call them tech giants for a reason. They're very, very good at snuffing out competition. And for the most part, we're talking about organizations here that have, upwards of 400 million users. The notion that Trump could create a new one that just, that lots of people like that use, I don't see that happening, but we'll be watching it closely anyways. Now, folks, we've come to the moment we've all been waiting for. An interesting debate discussion. Now I see a video's been queued up. Do I need to shut up for that video or should I speak first? There aren't any notes on here. So should I? No, I'm gonna wait. But what we're talking about, folks, is Kill the Bill. When I heard the bill, I initially thought, I love that film, but it's not about that. It's not Kill Bill. It's Kill the Bill. And so what you're seeing right now are the protests that were organized and that happened in Bristol that turned pretty ugly. We saw 21 police officers injured. 2 people were seriously injured. 1 person was suffering broken bones. Another was is suffering with a suspected punctured lung. So this is serious stuff. Now, this protest was because of a new bill that we actually spoke about on Common Sense. You can check it out if you go to on this YouTube channel. If you just kind of click around, you'll see a little video of me talking about it. The police crime sentencing and courts bill, mouthful. It's this 300-page bill which is meant to hand the police and the Home Secretary greater powers to crack down and to be able to control protests. The police say they need this increased powers because of the defacing we saw of statues in last year's Black Lives Matter protest. But also, if you remember the Extinction Rebellion protest from even further back, the police didn't feel like they could do anything to control that, like, bar arresting people. So this new powers is meant to give police and law enforcement officers the new powers to just make sure things are jeje, as we would say in Nigeria. What are your thoughts on this, Basai? I know we probably sit on opposite sides of the spectrum here, but I would love to get your what are your thoughts on this?
I feel like, listen, at the end of the day, people have the right to protest anything they think is not what they believe in, right? You're allowed to protest, do your thing, cool. Of that group of people, there will always be a certain amount of people who maybe are opportunists. And this is not me even assuming that these people are opportunists. They might genuinely believe this is the best way to operate. But then let's assume there's always going to be a certain amount of people who get a thrill from, the protests and the environment, and they want to go, run racket and believe, actually, I've got other issues and I want to make sure we can unite all my fury and do that. Cool. But there will also be people who use any excuse to say, this is why we should not protest, because a group of people always do X, Y, Z. And for me, I think it's such quite a lazy argument. I think obviously there's a wider conversation. You've kind of, I don't know, created a scene for which now the police or the Home Secretary can point to and say, see, but it's a lazy argument. You're allowed to protest, and it's cracking down on non-violent protests. So if it's violent protest what you want to crack down on, then I guess that's in line with what you already were allowed to do. You didn't need this bill to crack down on violent protests. You want to crack down on non-violent protests. So for me, they're not really the same conversation anyway. They're connected, but really and truly, this doesn't prove or disprove the point made by the people who are anti the bill. I don't think it's something that we can use against it.
But the folks who are going to protest, what and like I said, we've saw people injured. What are they hoping to achieve? Like what's the goal? Is it to have?
I think that's yeah.
Sorry,
I think obviously I wasn't there, so I don't know for this particular one.
I'm sure I saw you. Are you sure?
Yeah, you saw me. Yeah, I was there. Oh yeah, straight from Camden. I went straight there. Do you know what I mean? You see, Michael, he wants me to go to prison. I've seen it. I know your agenda. Because you can't take me there, you want me to. Okay, cool. But I think generally people protest because it's just a right that they have. Number one, to protest. If you don't like something and you feel powerless in other ways to do it, protest is just one avenue you could use. Whether it's effective or not, that comes down to the judgment of the person. Whether they care if this is the only means of protest, because a lot of people, what they do is they go to protest, but they're also signing petitions. They might be lobbying. They might have particular groups. So this is just one avenue they use to affect change. For other people, protest is the only way they can do it because of all those other areas are not accessible to them, whether it's because of language, whether it's because of culture, whether it's because of class, whichever it is. So for a lot of people, this was the only way they wanted to do it. And I think they should be able to do it. But at the same time, we also understand that when there is violence, the police are going to come. So it's it's both sides being realistic about what we expect and what's going to happen.
So before I bring in our special guest today, I want to get your thoughts on that, because I've often asked myself, well, what is a protest? Because there's coming out and demonstrating, and then there's 21 police officers injured, 2 seriously injured, someone with a punctured lung. Yeah. Is that all part and parcel of protests?
No.
Or should we? Because the bill, what the bill's trying to do is curb the chances of things getting to that stage, such that when noise gets too high, a police chief can say that, okay, we're quashing this, right? And so on and so forth. So my point is, should we just let things run unfettered until people are getting injured, or should this bill be able to go through that curbs the potential that it might get kind of to that stage?
I think around the bill generally, there's the wider context of why this bill was introduced. At what point, what events occurred for them to realize that they can manage protests, and it comes.
They said Extinction Rebellion.
And they're smart. And a lot of Extinction Rebellion annoys them anyway, because a lot of the people they're arguing for, they're sponsored by. So of course you're going to be jarred by these young people that you feel like are just living a life of like, they wish everything was equal and fair. But that's one thing. Black Lives Matter happens. That's when we talk about the statues. So a lot of people are saying, well, it seems as though these powers are going to increase your ability to have a certain amount of exposure to certain groups, which are already have a testing relationship. So if you wanted to do something like this, and I'm not in favor of it, essentially, there's a sort of relationship building that will probably be more effective than just saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make sure that we can do basically what we like and come there at a certain level. How protests unfold, it determines the time, depends on the people present, and determines the cause. And it's not all protests follow the same suit. And again, if it's about the violence, then there's a way you can manage those protests without then saying the whole nature of protests must suffer because of how many people are involved in those protests, where it gets violent. You know, and sometimes that conversation needs to be realistic about, okay, what powers do you need to make sure it doesn't get violent and no one's injured, not just police officers, that nobody's injured, versus what are they arguing on? Because the energy towards the protest is more than thinking about actually what are they protesting about. And then also about, you know, everybody, how can we make sure that this is a way where did you consult with society? Society is supposed to rule this, not just a courts. It's supposed to say, actually, as a community, how would we like to be governed? And I think that lack of access to that conversation for some people is very much like, actually, you didn't even consult us. We don't want this.
Yeah.
We don't look like this.
I take your point on, you know, on society having an input. I do not think society should rule anything ever. I really believe that courts should.
But are they not made of people with ideas from where?
Yeah, but when you say society at large, you know, if you look at a group of, you know, 500 people protesting something, that seems very kind of, oh wow, like there's a lot of people protesting. What you don't get is the thoughts of the people who aren't at the protest, because if you people who are not at the protest will always outweigh in numbers people at the protest. But because of the nature of protest, as you know. It seems as though folks feel like they have to smash something up. They have to break something in order for it to get on the news, because we said it before. The Black Lives Matter protests, they happen every single day in America, all across different states. But the ones that get reported are the ones where Minneapolis is burning. There's a truck being turned upside down. So there's almost a meta narrative that says that if you want to get your protest seen, you have to turn things over and burn things. And that's a problem, because that's going to create an unhealthy environment for folks telling in their thoughts.
100%, and I understand that, and again, that's where people have to have discernment about when you protest, whether or not you like it. Think about the context which you live in and be prepared for those consequences. Be prepared to fight them, but don't be shocked. However, we have to look at I don't want to use the word privilege all the time, but the privilege we have and our proximity to the issue. Now, if you're not really upset about the issue too tough, you might be morally confused or I don't agree. You probably won't be at the protest. Right? Whether you care or not. But some people who are fighting in some protest, that's your family member who's also experienced that. That's also someone that you can relate to. You are also on the poverty line. So whether you share a black square or not, it's very real to you. Whereas a lot of us, even though we might look like the people that are part of the protest, our privileges or our access to that conversation might mean, actually, I'm not moved to use my feet and my body to protest it. And we have to look at that. We can't questioning why people do things. Also needs to be looked at, why don't people do things, and not look at it as those who are using necessarily violent means, or things get escalated, that they're a particular type of people who don't deserve to express themselves in a certain way. So and again, how things escalate, no one's really there. So sometimes you've got to think about, why was it that this escalated? This particular protest escalates. Is it always the people protesting that are just, they wake up and they throw fire? What is the turn of events that occur? Where the police is probably a big contributor to that, whether it's their presence. And that's why I say police have to also recognize, what is your relationship with the community you're trying to police? Because there's no point just saying there's certain communities that don't like this or certain conversations. It's about a bill. It's about policing, and police are the ones there who have to squash it.
I take your point. Let's bring on Hamish, who may share with us a different perspective. Hamish writes at Common Sense. Hello, Hamish. How do you do?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you doing?
All good. I'm going to ask you straight up. Was the protest in Bristol productive or counterproductive?
I mean, if we're talking about it, then it's productive then, isn't it? I think it is productive, because if it is...
I'm not... Sorry.
It's
bad weather gets us talking. No, I'm just going to push you back, because in the UK, bad weather gets us talking. So when folks say like a win, it's like, really? It's as effective as a rainy day.
No, I think if we are, because it proves that people are upset by this bill, but people don't want this bill passed, essentially. And you have to make a noise, you have to make a racket to showcase you are very annoyed. I find that, you know, I mean, no matter what the protest is or how violent it is, if people are talking about it, then it shows they are projecting the message in my eyes. And sometimes, to a certain extent, I think you need violence to